Today we shall discuss a very simple and a very effective memorization method. It is very simple because it is based on something which is very close to you. It is particularly effective for memorizing long lists such as the names of the sovereigns of Britain or the prime ministers of India or the presidents of the United States. At the end of the discussion, I shall give you a concrete example of how this method can be used to memorize a list. Before I proceed any further, I would like to point out that memorization is the most basic skill. If you don't remember anything, you simply cannot do anything. Memorization is the foundation on which all the other intellectual processes are based. Students keep asking me whether they should memorize or whether they should understand. My reply to them, and this is something I'm fond of repeating, is that memorization and understanding, memorization and comprehension are not, I repeat, are not two contradictory processes. Memorization facilitates greater comprehension. So you should memorize and you should also understand. Please don't think that you should merely comprehend and not memorize. They are two very closely related processes. There may be points in the narrative which you may not comprehend fully. That doesn't matter. You should memorize the whole thing and try to understand the whole thing. And as you memorize more and more, your ability to comprehend certainly increases. I have already discussed the memory palace method. I call it the memory house method in another video. I shall give the link to that video in the description box. Please look it up. The memory palace method, the very simple and very effective method of memorization. But I think that the body method is even simpler and even more effective. Here, instead of the various points in the palace, the various points in the house, the body itself, the various parts of the body are used to memorize, to facilitate the memorization of lists. The body is used as a framework for memorization of long lists of facts. As a child, I had problems in memorizing the list of British sovereigns from Victoria to Elizabeth II. My grandmother, who had gone to school in the heyday of the British Raj, was very enthusiastic in trying to make me memorize the list of names. But I found it a near impossible task. It was then that my grandmother and myself hit upon the idea of using the body method of memorization. By using the various parts of the body as hooks or pegs in order to fix the names indelibly in memory. As a child, I had problems in trying to memorize the list of British sovereigns. My maternal grandmother, who had gone to school in the heyday of the British Empire, was very enthusiastic in trying to make me memorize the list of names. But somehow I could never master the list of names. And so my grandmother and myself decided to use the body method of memorization, where the different parts of the human body are used as hooks or pegs in order to fix the names indelibly in memory. We begin with Victoria. My grandmother told me that there was a hairdresser in Bangalore called Victoria. She was an Anglo-Indian girl. And my grandmother had lived in Bangalore briefly during the Second World War, where her husband, my grandfather, had been posted as a doctor in the British Indian Army. So Victoria is a hairdresser and she is working attentively in a very focused manner on my hair. I imagine Queen Victoria, a fat woman, working attentively on my hair as a hairdresser. Then there is Edward VII. Edward VII, as everyone knows, was a playboy. He was a smoker, a chain smoker. I imagine Edward VII as a cigarette. So Edward VII becomes a cigarette in my mouth. Victoria is a hairdresser working on my hair, and her son Edward VII is a cigarette, quite appropriately, for he was a playboy, a cigarette in my mouth. Then we have two Georges, George V and George VI, with another Edward thrown in between them. The root meaning of the word George, the biblical meaning of the word George, is earth worker or farm worker. In order to be an earth worker, you must have strong shoulders. And I imagine the two Georges to be perched on my shoulders. George V on my right shoulder, George VI on my left shoulder. What do I do with Edward VIII? Edward VIII. Edward VIII, you must remember, abdicated the throne. He gave up kingship. So I imagine Edward VIII as a scarf on my neck. I take the scarf and throw it away. Edward VIII is a scarf on my neck. Edward VIII gave up the throne. And so he is the scarf which I discard. Now we come to Elizabeth II. The root meaning of the word Elizabeth is God's promise. And she was indeed God's promise to her people. So I imagine Elizabeth as a finger ring on the ring finger of my right hand. On the ring finger of my right hand, I have a finger ring, and there is the picture of Elizabeth on it. Maybe it is a wedding ring. Maybe it's a wedding ring because she was so much wedded to her people. She was so much wedded to her country. She was so much wedded to her life as sovereign. So we started with Victoria, Edward VII, George V, Edward VIII, George VI, and now we have reached Elizabeth II. I don't think that we need any peg, any hook to remember the name of Charles, because King Charles is on the throne right now and his formal coronation is about to take place. But if you want a peg, you can use another ring. King Charles is said to have expensive tastes, so you can visualize him as a very expensive diamond ring that you wear on the ring finger of your left hand. So King Charles becomes a very expensive diamond ring on the ring finger of your left hand. Thus, we have used the parts of your body, to remember the names of British sovereigns from Victoria to Charles III. Victoria, Edward VII, George V, Edward VIII, George VI, Elizabeth II, and finally Charles III.